Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. I'm joined with Arnold for another episode of Sane in an Insane World. And what we're going to discuss this week is the news, the earthquake in Thailand and Myanmar. Is that how I pronounce this, Arnold?
Myanmar.
Myanmar, okay. Using signals for military ops, bees and beauty, the Ukraine ski resort. And AI. Spotting cancer in microscopic tissues, addiction to ChatGPT, Culina robot, and the cons with AI. And we've got a few pictures for you as well to keep you entertained. The Good News Caravan, happiest countries in the world. Let's hope we're moving there, or are we there already? Who knows? 31 different American states, all passing legislation to stop chemtrails, engineering, and Kallaway. Wow, yeah. Ancient healing was, I probably butchered that as well, Arnold. Kallaway, yeah, is it?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Okay. And health, we've got Rockefeller Lab created polio, Airpods burn your brain, vaccine damage, and vitamins. Other topics, electricity demand greater than supply in Utrech, and the freedom of information. So what I want to say actually at the start is we've created on YouTube a playlist that you can now go in. So when you like the shows that we're doing, because obviously I've got a lot of different podcasts, the playlist will be just specific to this. So you can just go in, and also you might just subscribe and hit the alarm bell, give us a thumbs up and share it to friends, because we get censored a lot and this really helps. The other thing is I just want to mention my shows, which I think are relevant. I'm obviously spitting out a lot of different episodes, but one which I think is very good is John Perkins. He's the guy that wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman. We had a panel that interviewed, a very kind of international panel, which is a good conversation. So I might put the link for that in. It's worth listening. And there was another one on the speaking podcast, Joanne Merrick. And we're talking about, she just created a book, and it's about managers, dealing with toxic managers. So I know a lot of people would be actually suffering that. So yeah, rant over. Arnold, how are you?
I'm excellent. Looking forward to today.
Great. So, I mean, I've seen a few of the videos on the social media about the earthquakes in Thailand. So what's exactly going on there?
Well, actually, the earthquake happened in Myanmar, near a city called Mandalay, which is their second largest city in the country. But because Myanmar is a country which is in a civil war, at the same time there's a military government, so it's in a military dictatorship. So there's not much news which comes out of it. The only news what I've seen is on X, which is really incredible, because in a city like Myanmar, that is where the epicenter of the earthquake was. You see a guy who's driving on the street with a scooter and he's filming, and what you see is that almost every house or every other house has collapsed. And so, but you won't see it because there are not many journalists, I expect, because, well, again, military dictatorship. So, but I think there will be thousands and thousands and thousands of casualties, because, again, we don't see it, we don't notice it. But if imagine in a city, well, I don't know, of 1 million people, and every other house is collapsed, you can imagine how many people will be dead. What we have been seeing is what happened in Thailand, because it's the neighboring country, and up to Bangkok, which is, I think, hundreds of kilometers away from what Myanmar. So these are the shocks which were felt in Bangkok, what happened in Myanmar. Yeah, and there are, well, the two pictures which come to mind, one where you see a skyscraper, you see it moving, which is actually a good thing, because it wouldn't move, it would collapse. But you see it moving, but you see a lot of these skyscrapers in Bangkok, well, it's hot, it's tropical, they get a swimming pool on the top. So you see that the water out of the swimming pool gets down, but that's not a little bit of water, that's a flood. So and the buildings collapsing everywhere. So it's really nasty. But what you see is that you think, oh, what's happening in Bangkok? Of course, that's terrible. But things which have a much higher impact is Myanmar, but we don't see it. So
Honestly, I didn't see it, and all I was seeing was that big, huge tower with the water. But there was one frightening scene: is you had a couple that were lying on a lilo, and when it happened, and the water was going, they were intelligent to jump off fast and try to get in, but easily you could have been just kind of swooshed over. I mean, there's no hope for you if that happens, but it just shows the way the media is, because everything I'm seeing is more about the water just flowing off, then nothing about all the buildings collapsing.
no, but there's even a picture of a new building which they're building in Bangkok and it's collapsing. But again, I saw some picture of guys on scooters driving in Myanmar and everything, and it's like it looked like a war zone. It's really ugly. It's really ugly. So that's why we mention it here, is that you know. But it's like it's the shock wave from what happened in Myanmar, which went up to Bangkok. And Bangkok is not at the border with thing. It's I think a couple of 100 kilometers further away. So this is really huge. Yeah?
And you mentioned it looked like a war zone, so I'll just touch on that one. That was one I kind of saw during the week, and I was like, the construction of the Goro Mountain Ski Resort in Lviv, and I was in Lviv a few years ago. Beautiful place. It's actually very like Poland, where they're building 25 hotels, 5,500 rooms, stretching across a total of 2,965 acres, with 46.1 mile long ski resorts, and it's basically going to cost 1.2 billion. So interesting that that's happening in a so-called war zone.
Yeah, that is. But that's the way their Zelensky and his friends make money. So they're not interested in their people; they're interested in making money for themselves. Yeah? So,
So next one.
talking about war, we connect everything with each other. Is like there's been this week that Signal, which is it's like WhatsApp, but people think it is more secure, which I doubt. But the folks in the American government, whatever, are using the Signal, and well, basically people all over the world, and I think especially also Dutch people, government people, so that they were mentioning that they were going to attack the folks in Yemen and bomb them, but that was just publicly available. So they use again, say Signal is something similar to WhatsApp. And that's the way, yeah, well, let's start the bombing tomorrow. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, how many? Totally available everywhere. So, but that is the stupid thing. I discussed it with someone this week is like young people, and especially the younger people out of the US government, they're so used to using these apps that it's very natural to them, but they don't think about security issues. They don't even think like, hey, is this a good tool to use or whatever? No, it's like, there you go. And all of a sudden, half the world knows that they were going to bomb the folks in Yemen. So, which is in itself terrible. Yeah, so, but we don't think about the media, what we're using, and whether that's safe and a good thing to use.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about before, like WhatsApp and that. There's nothing, and it's the same with even blockchain technology. It's it's all a lie, and people think that they're protected, but I don't believe so. So the next one is the bees and beauty, not the birds and the bees, but the bees and beauty.
Go to the picture. Yeah. To the left, it's a picture which I took this morning on my walk, and it's not about those cars and the billboard of the nice looking lady. It's about that bush to the right of it. And that's what I'm showing folks who are not on video, is like a beautiful white blossom bush, because we're in the northern hemisphere, spring is starting, so a beautiful bush. But it's
Well, I just like to clarify there, no, because you mentioned not the lady, but you're then talking about a bush. So I know the Irish will be thinking differently for that, but you actually mean the greenery of a bush, don't you?
yeah. well, in this case, the white of yeah. But it's I think it symbolizes the world in which we live, because it's like car wrecks. Yeah, well, a lady with a bush, and it's about betting, it's about gaming, beta noising. So those are signs of our society. Yeah, and then despite this ugly world, you see a beautiful blossoming bush, and I'm like, wow, that's really beautiful and nice. But what do we humans make of it? An ugly environment. But in order for the bush to blossom, you need bees. Yeah? You need bees for our food, for everything, for flowers, for everything to grow, whatever. We need bees. To the right, I have I made a print screen of a small movie on X, where it is said, and this is news from a report from last month, where it says that in the US only 1.12 million beehives, that is 68% of all bees, are lost over the past 8 months. 68% of all bees are lost over the 8 months. And their 12-month estimate is that 80% of all bees will be lost. Now you might say, what do I have to do with it? But hey, folks, if there are no bees, there's no food. There are no flowers. There are no trees. Most of that stuff will totally be gone. So this is huge. Yeah. So I would say, well, we later on we will quickly talk about the chemtrails and the geoengineering. But if 80% of the bees are gone, then everything which grows and flourishes in our society will be gone. So yeah, this is a huge thing. And the left picture is more a symbol of like, hey, in our ugly world, there is still something nice and beautiful growing, but we have to be very, very careful.
Yeah. And I suppose, like with the AI, it's gonna we'll tap into this in a minute, because I believe the AI, like what I'm going to show with the cons, is connected with what you've just said. But I suppose let's start off with spotting cancer in the microscopic tissue.
Yes, there has been a new AI model. Well, it has a very sexy name. It's called ECGMLP. Well, that's logical. So that identifies endometrial cancer with a 99.26 point accuracy over microscopic tissue images. So, and that has obviously a huge outperforming humans who were, well, supposedly to detect cancer in those tissues. So currently the humans, when they diagnose, they are between 78 to 81% accuracy. So this new AI model is to 99.26% accuracy. So you can imagine what it means for health and being more preventive in detecting cancer and already start addressing that. So that is a good use where AI is, well, could potentially save a lot of lives.
I suppose I'll go on to Elon Musk, because a lot of people would be familiar with him. So you can see the picture for those watching. He's created a culinary robot, $5,000, which it's supposed to cook better than the chefs. Culina is the name. Better than professional chefs. The robot, designed by Musk's latest venture, a division of the Tesla focused on food technology and AI. Culina is a fully automated cooking assistant equipped with advanced AI and precision robotics, capable of preparing a wide range of dishes from intricate French pastries to perfectly seared steaks using high-quality sensors, robotic arms, and a variety of cooking techniques. Culina ensures that every meal is cooked to perfection. Its AI algorithm continuously learn and adapt to the preferences of the user, allowing it to deliver personalized meals every time. So, I mean, I knew the waiters' jobs were kind of going because we talked about that the machine's going wrong, but do all the chefs realize that if this is true, that you've got like robots that are so good at $5,000, a chef costs a lot more per year. So I think you're going to be replacing all the people with chefs as well. And do you get them in the home? Are they really tracking spying devices? Who knows? But it's just one to keep an eye on.
Well, it's incredible because $5,000 would be, if you, well, I know there are a lot of people who hire a personal chef for their home, so those are the people who are a little bit more wealthy. But for $5,000 for a one-off thing, and you get someone who can cook for you 365 days, 7 by 24, that is incredibly cheap, huh?
So
Well, maybe a lot of housewives are now cheering because it's like, well, I don't need to cook anymore. Just buy me a Culina, huh?
But I think a lot of it, and we've touched on it, goes down to the creativity as well. Like it'll get to a stage where people will get so lazy that they'll stop using their brains because everything will be done for them. And I don't know what that's going to
Yeah,
lead to.
we become 100% just consuming entities, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And by the way, folks, for your brain fitness, cooking is very good for relaxing.
I love it. I thoroughly enjoy cooking. So yeah. So addiction with ChatGPT.
Yes. It's interesting because, well, you could have imagined that, but it's not only imagining that, but this is a research where OpenAI is involved. So they were researching themselves, and they have found that some ChatGPT power users, so people who have a subscription, well, they pay up to a few $100 a month or it, and they are continuously using ChatGPT, and they say is like these folks are behaving like they are addicted to the chatbot. And there's a study between OpenAI and MIT Media Lab. So this is a very serious study, and they found that it has become a problematic use as indicators of addiction, like including preoccupation, withdrawal symptoms, loss of control, and mood modification. So this is really, really important to understand that, well, please, folks, don't become addicted to an AI chatbot because that's what they want you to be. But we want you to stay human and not to become further robotized.
And I mean, a lot of the time it's just searching and it gives you answers. So it's not always telling you the truth, which we've kind of covered a few times. But just one that I was looking at during the week, because I'm reading a book on Bitcoin and how it has been infiltrated. And hopefully next week or the week after, I'll be able to kind of explain a bit more about that. But I was just curious. I said, where's the cheapest base for electricity? Because the reality of the mining for the Bitcoins would be good. And it's Iran, because they've got something like the second highest for oil and the third for gas. And it's like 0.002 cent per kilowatt. And I asked what percentage are actually miners there. And it said from 4.5 to 7%. Like, that's a massive spread. So even at that, you're not getting accurate information. So the next one is just a graphic. I can't get, I don't know where, it was one of the groups I'm in, so I'm not sure who actually created this, but I think it's very good. Digital prison. So facial recognition, we know that's happening. It's happening in a lot of places. Smart meters, I know that they're pulsing. A lot of people get tinnitus and everything. So that's, deadly. And there's ways of protecting it and putting kind of mesh and stuff over it. But just to be aware and not, like, people think you have to get the smart meters when they come around because the way they do it, they kind of coax you into thinking you've no choice, but you do. And if you have them, just tell them, get rid of them. Because perhaps people don't know, but it's not a case of, if it was done that it's sending a signal once a week or once a month just to get your meter reading, brilliant. That stops, somebody have to come out and there's nobody in the house and stuff like that. It's pulsing constantly, which is basically you're bombarded by these frequencies. And that could be changed, but obviously they don't want it because they're trying. Starlink is what, Musk and, I think a lot of them, sure, they put thousands of satellites up with all the thing. 5G, I think that's going back to the bees. I think all these frequencies are affecting bees. I used to see a lot of bees before. I don't see them no more. You rarely see them. So, it's not a case of the report you were giving earlier. I'm convinced we can see that there's way less insects around, which has a chain reaction with the ecosystem. Social credit scores. A lot of people talk about China. Oh, like they've got their social credit system and all that, and you can't fly if you. And yeah, just look at when you want a mortgage in the States or in Ireland or in the UK, where we have a lot of listeners. It's like, yeah, you've got the 3 different scoring systems. Like, and if you don't get above it, you won't get any money. They won't lend it to you. So that's a social credit score as well. Like, so we're being tracked for everything. The central banks, digital currencies. I'm talking a lot about that on the crypto podcast, but it's a lot of people with the blockchain. They think this is the best thing since sliced bread, and that the government doesn't know, it's decentralized and everything. They know everything. Everything is traceable, and the way they're organized and everything. And I've mentioned it that the white paper was released on Halloween. So just we'll delve into that one a lot more later on. The carbon allowance, I want to touch on that later on. Smart cities, like we're hearing about that. Well, what's strange about the smart cities is they normally burn to the ground first before they're actually created. So when you start investigating where the smart cities were, there's a lot of disasters actually happening there. And the 15-minute cities, we've touched on it. So you're familiar with a lot of these things. What's your thoughts on that one, Arnold?
Well, what we've been using, it's called, well, many names. They call it totalitarianism. They call it technocracy. But it's basically that we are moving into what they call a new world order, where we are run by AI. We're not run by people or chosen people from elections, politicians, and we which have an honest process. No, that whole process is, well, we've been giving you examples about what happened here in Romania, what's happening in Turkey right now. It's like there are no more, you could say, fair elections, but it's not about the elections. It's not about the people. It's about AI running our world. So AI will be your president, king, or queen, or whatever name you give it. That is what's happening. And it used to be all plans, and things have been planned maybe even decades, maybe even 100 years before. But now we have moved past like that. It is just a plan to what Roy just explained. Like, it's not a plan, folks. It's happening, and it's happening now. Yeah. And we will continue mentioning these things, because we must not think it like, oh, this will happen in 50, 100 years from now. No, folks, this is happening as we speak.
Absolutely. I suppose with all the doom and gloom, let's cheer him up. Arnold, what good news have you got for us? Where's the happiest countries?
There's the yearly report. It's a yearly study which is going on for more than 20 years, which is called the world's 20 happiest countries in 2025. So, Roy, what do you think is the happiest country in the world?
I don't know, maybe Indonesia or somewhere like that. I don't think it's America. I don't think it's anywhere in Europe anyway.
No, I must disappoint you. Number 1 is Finland. And actually, the top 4 are all countries in Northern Europe. Number 2 is Denmark. Number 3 is Iceland. Number 4 is Sweden. And even to my own surprise, number 5 is Netherlands. A list which I don't know whether how serious to take, because number 8 is Israel. I don't know how you can be happy in Israel right now. But anyway, there's a top list, there's a bottom of the list. But the main question is, if you look at all these countries, at which number, Roy, do you think the US is?
More than halfway down, I would assume.
You're absolutely right. The US is at number 24. Yeah, you're not mistaken. You're hearing this correctly. Number 24. And what it says is, for the first time in modern history, US life expectancy is actually declining. Yeah? I hear from folks in the US that there's a longevity center at every corner of the street, but the life expectancy is, how old are you gonna get? It used to be in the 80s and now it's in the 70s, so it's declining. The chronic disease in the US is skyrocketing. Cancer affects 1 in 2 people in their lifetime. 1 in 2. If you don't get it, your neighbor get it, or your wife or your husband. And while at the same time, the spend on healthcare in the US is the highest in the world. So it's clear that something is wrong there. But there are also countries who do pretty well. There are countries which are not so well known, like Costa Rica, or even, which is at number 6. At number 10 is Mexico. So that's really, really good news.
So the 31 different American states all passing legislation to stop chemtrails. That's something that just puts a smile to my face. Tell me more about that one, because that's my pet hate.
There are already, and I think we shared it here, there are already countries who passed it down into legislation, like, hey, it's forbidden. You're no longer.
Texas was one anyway, one state that I knew did it first. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are now many who are in the process of getting that legislation passed. So this is really, really good news, because it means that, well, if that legislation passed in that state, it's like, hey, guys, if they still continue doing it, becomes a criminal activity, which it is, but it has now, it becomes formalized as a criminal activity. It's really, really good news.
It's the fact that we have to fight this is unreal. And yeah, I think I mentioned it when I investigated the Texas one. I started looking how it was done so I could try to replicate it there. And every single thing was saying, oh, conspiracy theorists, just debunk. Everything was negative about it. And this is senators that got this bill approved and how it done. So it's not pie in the sky, but just the internet, which shows how dangerous it is. And then you've got all these people asking ChatGPT, hey, what about this? They're going to get the answer that they want you to hear. So be very careful. So ancient healing wisdom. How do we get ourselves healthier, Arnold?
Yeah, please go to the next slide. I watched a documentary on YouTube called the Kallaway, which is the name of the ancient healers in the Andes, especially in South America, in Peru. And this is a picture I took from the documentary, which is for free. It's 45 minutes. I highly recommend you have a look at it, because it's so beautiful. Because it is like, this is a healer with his adopted son, which he trains to become a full-blown healer himself. And what they use is, everything is completely natural. They only use plants, and they are growing like a wildflower garden where they grow all these herbs of more than 1,000 varieties. The guy is supposed to know that he knows by head 600 different plants and how they're going to help you and treat you. And it shows that he's traveling all through that area. It's a very mountainous area, and the poor people, they all prefer to be helped by those healers rather than by the normal sick care system. So The people going everywhere is going to a silver mine where people are under terrible conditions, have to work. So he's treating people, whatever. That's shown in the documentary, but it's fully natural. So I highly recommend it. And by the way, these Kallaway people, they have been doing this since the Incas. They were the healers of Inca kings. Well, I don't know exactly when the Inca was there, but that is, I guess, something like 1,000 years ago. So it's really a tradition which they're using and they're still using today, with incredible results. So really, really positive, really nice. It's not only about the work, but it's also about beautiful landscape. So highly recommend you have a look at it.
Yeah, so we make sure we put the links in the show notes as well. So health, Rockefellers, yeah, our buddies. What have they been doing, Arnold?
Yeah, there was I think a lady has been interviewed on the Joe Rogan show. Who really is in the know and said that in 1916, the Rockefeller Lab had a specific stated goal to create, folks, not to detect or discover, no, to create the most neuropathological strain of polio possible, which was released by accident. Think about the COVID thing, yeah? And the world experienced the worst polio epidemic ever. So this lady, well, really exposes and shows that a lot of these things, and this was already 1916, that is 100 years, more than 100 years ago. These folks were still doing it, is they create something to make us sick. Yeah, so that is really, really, we have to understand. And this happened 100 years ago. This is still happening today.
I read a lot on the polio thing, and it was like they were saying that they put pesticides on the crops that created a DDT was the thing which created a polio. So maybe it was connected with that. I'm not sure. But then they started using the polio from people saying, give them a vaccine with the polio that will prevent you. But they knew they were actually injecting it into people, which in turn was creating more polio. And these guys are still around, their next generations. They don't turn nice overnight. So yeah, just beware. So AirPods burning your brain, Arnold.
Yeah, we talked last week a little bit. Please show the next slide. The where we said no, where we shared a study about how phones and social media impacts your learning, your reading, your writing, your understanding, and everything. But it's not only your mobile phones. It's also AirPods. I see. These things are expensive, but I see so many people walking with them, and they just assume it's good. But basically, what it is like they are operating what the slide says. They use the same frequency as your microwave oven, which is 2.4 gigahertz. So that is 2.4 gigahertz heats your frozen meal or everything up to a temperature where you can eat it. Yeah. But this is the same frequency which goes in your brain. So basically it burns your brain. Yeah? So if you put those things, it's like putting your brain in a microwave. That's what you do. Yeah? So folks, this is really, really, really dangerous to use them. And I know they're expensive and people are using it, but just use something with a wire. And like show it. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Just use your headphones with a wire. I don't have anyone in the so it's really, really crucial because what I do, what I address with my brain fitness, there's the mental illness and everything is exploding all over the world from here to Africa to Asia. It's everywhere, but everywhere is using those things. So we're literally getting fried. We're getting cooked.
I And you were saying they're expensive. They were, the Apple ones were, but then there's all alternatives. So for like $20, like people are getting them now as well, different ones. And even at one stage I just got them when they came out first. And then I like, and I started investigating it. You have your phone and people think the signal is going from your ear down to the phone and the other ear. It doesn't. It goes from one to the other across your brain and then down. And a guy had a device that was actually showing how dangerous they were. And I was telling a lot of people, I never used it since after seeing that. But yet, most people, it's like going into McDonald's and eating your hamburger. Hey, I didn't drop dead. It can't be that bad. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So, yeah, just
Yeah, and then even if well, again for those watching, but I would read there's a seminar discussing. There's an EMF hazard summit happening from April 10 to April 15. It's free. It's called go look to the site called emfhazards.com. Yeah. And there we'll discuss all of these things, which is highly it's the main thing. What is impacting is what is invisible. It's frequencies. It's something in the sky. I cannot see it. But it's like everything what is invisible that has the largest impact. Yeah, it's not a big truck on in front of your house who starts shooting. No, it's like everything which is invisible starts to impact you and have an influence on your health.
So the next one now is about vaccine damages. And I want to play a video. So can you see my Instagram page, Arnold? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put on the earphones for this and just listen to this because it's very important.
Report for the public. You will see that they didn't do any fertility studies. Pages 16 to 21 are of particular interest for people to look at if they're interested. And they did no fertility studies, and they didn't even do fertility studies in animals. They were exempt. The studies and trials were exempt, which is most peculiar. They didn't do any studies in pregnant women, and yet it was pushed on pregnant women. And we know from the Pfizer studies themselves that they said to the women in the studies, you must not get pregnant, you must use contraception, you mustn't get pregnant under any circumstances. And human nature being what it is, 25 women did get pregnant. And out of the 25 pregnancies, there were 15 miscarriages, which means that's 58% miscarriage rate for women who were vaccinated and became pregnant. And out of the 9 babies that were born, 5 had congenital abnormalities. So this is a complete disaster, absolute disaster. And we've seen miscarriage and stillborn baby rates go up enormously, actually. In Scotland, the normal rate is 2 in 1,000, and it's gone up to 4.9 in 1,000, which is the highest level for over 10 years.
Is this? Well, I mean, I couldn't have done that justice by actually talking about it and saying it. So I think like that's a doctor. So I'll give the link for it so people can actually go in and listen to more. But even today, I was just talking to somebody and they were, because I remember all the banners there, like, pregnant woman, it's safe to get the jab. Like, and someone was telling me that their brother's partner, when she was pregnant, got the jab. And as soon as the baby's born, got the jab again. It's like, it's sick. And that's why we're seeing so much diseases and deaths and everything around. So, like, they knew. Like, they should all be in jail for that. They know. Everything was hidden, and then people were told a lie. And I've been saying it from the very start, from when I'm doing this show. I told them exactly what's going on, and people just attack you. It's out there. So, it doesn't matter if you have a different belief system, and don't let the ego get in the way that you think, okay, I have my belief system. Put up your hand and say, I was duped. It's not your fault that you went away and thought that this was right. Because if you had every television channel telling you this is safe, you had so-called health doctors, the Minister for Health, and your doctor coming along saying, hey, this is safe, it's on them, not on you. But just make sure that, remember, everything is like that. They're doing that to you on everything. So you have to start taking off the layers and start studying and listening to things. And even every single thing that we're discussing here, Don't believe anything we've said. Go away and start doing the research yourself. We're helping you to kind of just tap on it, but we don't put out stuff that we think might be just, this is bullcrap. We do a lot of research. We read loads of books. We're listening to shows. We're checking credentials. So we're trying to help you with a lot of the research, but still go away and start digging a bit deeper.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that is that what doctors are now experiencing, what they see in patients is that they call it turbo cancer. Is that especially in young children, the cancer rate is exploding. It's not normal. Cancer used to be and still is an old man disease. Yeah, and now you see children with cancer and growing like crazy. That's why they call it turbo cancer. So that might say something. By the way, in addition to the thing, I got one round of jabs because well, like I say on my other podcast, I was trained to be an obedient citizen. Yes, I followed the same narrative and didn't know you're supposed to do that. Yeah, until I started waking up these things. So what's important, what Roy said, it's not your fault. It's the way we are conditioned. Yeah, and the way we are conditioned literally since we're born. And so it's like, please don't feel guilty. Forgive yourself, but don't forgive the people who did that to us. And it's totally not your fault. And then just say, well, this is your no. Be open and see what's happening in the world with the pregnancy, with the cancers, with everything happening. Is like, maybe it's time to change your mind. And it's never too late. It's never too late to change your mind.
So this is just a quick one. I like to take the different vitamins because, as you mentioned in a previous show, like the crop, they're not doing crop rotation like they used to 100 years ago. And all, your spinach, did you say it's something like 24 bowls of spinach or something like that, the equivalent of one now? But it's the same with a lot of so we're taking all the vitamins and everything. So like vitamin D and zinc and everything. And one of the things that when I was talking to like my folks, and my dad passed 2 years ago, but before that, like we were talking about, and sometimes I'd send them and they go, oh no, we have zinc, we have this, we have that. And the difference was unreal. Like sometimes it can be 10 times more powerful. And people think, oh, I get zinc. Zinc is good for me. But how many kind of milligrams again? These are 50. And sometimes you can get 5 and stuff like that and pay a lot more because they're kind of the brand mark and just see how they're made. And, just different tablets like with the two, there was ones there like they're 10,000 IUs. That's the rating that does it. And other ones that they were paying a lot more for were 2,000. So it meant my one tablet they'd have to take 5 tablets for. And theirs were way more expensive. So all I say is when you are taking vitamins, do a research, check out they're made, check that there's not, toxic oils and crap in them because there's all trickery in that as well. But check the amount that is in it so that you're getting good value for your money.
And unfortunately, it is really necessary. It's not, because like I said last week, indeed, is like the nutritional value, the minerals, the vitamins, which are in any vegetable, any fruit. So you can't live off that. So you gotta add those supplements, but it's become big business. It's $1 billion industry. So there are a lot of people taking advantage of that. Our whole food system is corrupted, basically. Yeah, so it's really important to also in this area is like they're good guys and they're bad guys. Yeah? And check out for the good guys and girls.
So finally, our other topics. What's happening in Utrech with the electricity, Arnold?
Yeah, well, the Utrecht is a province in the center of the Netherlands where I lived most of my life, so that's why I know a little bit about it. But there was an article in the mainstream news that the guys who manage the infrastructure for electricity, that they are already scared about what they call a doom scenario, that by 2029, which is in a few years, that approximately 200,000 houses in that province, which is in the central Netherlands, will have no electricity. And what they are seeing is that because of the use of electric cars and heat pumps, because everybody's focused on heat pumps, but they need electricity, that the demand for electricity is more than what they can supply. Now I was reading this, is like, why are they not doing something about it then? Yeah, and this is like, I had been a marketing manager a long time ago, but your role in marketing is to make sure that that you scope out and say, what is the demand in the market for my product, and how will it develop? Will it grow? Will it decline? Will it stay the same? Because that is important for your organization, and say, okay, how many of these products are we potentially going to sell in the next period? Yeah? But they're just like, no, we see the demand increasing. Like, oh, we cannot cope with that. I'm like, all these guys should be fired in my thing, because it's like, that's your job. Your job is to scope what's happening in the market and make sure that your supply can meet that demand. Instead of writing an article saying, oh, we're going to have a problem, there might not be any electricity. By the way, this is not only future oriented. There are already many provinces in the Netherlands where if you start a new company and, let's say, a factory, and you need electricity, they put you on the waiting list. So you cannot even start building your stuff, or you build it and say, now I need the electricity. Sorry, sir, we put you on the waiting list because we cannot supply you with the electricity at the moment. So what I found thing is that people don't do their normal work anymore. Isn't that the work of people who manage the infrastructure in your country to balance demand and supply? That's your job. That's what you're paid for. And so I think this, well, maybe they use a lot of Airpods because their brains are getting fried. So it's like people cannot think clearly anymore. It's like, that's your job. If you don't do your job, get away and let other people do your job.
What they've done then is they've just quadrupled the prices so that the person has to cut down on it, and they're making way more profits than before. So it's it's sick. So what I want to do now is just on the freedom of information, and I want to show the document, right? So if you have a look at this, because I mentioned this as well, I'm sure, before, and let's hope I get the right one now, because can you see chemtrails over Cardiff? Is that the...
Yeah, it's there.
So somebody had asked in 2022, you asked for information regarding aircraft manned or unmanned dispensing chemicals over Cardiff. And they basically saying you need to kind of go back to the English government. So I've got ones with the links on that, right? And I'm going to open that one now as well and just have a quick read of it from the UK government. And I will share all these links in the show notes so that people can, read the whole lot themselves. So you can see the UK government's view on greenhouse gas removal and solar radiation management are terms describing a range of technologies that aim to counteract human-caused climate change by deliberate large-scale intervention in the Earth's natural systems, and then remove greenhouse gases from the stratosphere. Examples include afforestation, bioenergy and carbon capture and storage, direct air capture and storage, fertilizers, SRM technology. Some technologies reflect some of the sun's energy that reaches Earth back into space, right? And I can read all this, I'm going to send the links for it, but basically we had mentioned that it's hurting my eyes now, and all this week as well. Like, I went for a walk with my son, and I was like, look at this, it is disgusting. It's not the sun, it's reflective crap that they're putting in there, and they're like so-called for climate change. So this is their own information from the government that's coming out saying this. So what I'd encourage people is do your own freedom of information. I see people put a load of questions. Unfortunately, you kind of have to keep it simple because they'll just bat you off. But with what you talked about earlier, Turkey one, I believe, was I'm just hoping that it ripples across. But anyone, we've seen videos of people, the pilots and everything, they should all be strung. Like, they're dumb. The Airpods must have been on full blast for 24/7 with them, because do they care about their mothers? Do they care about their children themselves? Is the dollar more valuable to them? It's, for me, I cannot comprehend how thick people are. And every time I comment on it, I'm just actually, I was going to show it before. I don't have the thing ready, but I'll just touch on it. I made a comment on one of the radio channels because they were talking about parking. I just got seriously abused. Like, everybody was like totally abusing me for making a comment that, hey, why don't you look into this instead of stupid parking? Like, horrible comments. So this is the city I come from, Cork in Ireland, which you would think would be kind of fairly intelligent. Everyone is asleep. Like, this isn't me just willy-nilly thinking I'm right. I'm 100% sure of this. We've got documentation there that's showing it. Like, the fact that they've banned it in Texas and then all of a sudden they're seeing clear skies. So if you're dumb enough to not understand this, keep your head in the sand and don't be attacking people that are actually the people that are curious, that might actually make it, because the only way it stops is if we all stand together and beat the crap out of these idiots that are doing it. Because paper, you can't beat them in the court because they own all the courts. Rant over.
Okay. Yeah, so to end on a positive note, people in the Northern Hemisphere, I would recommend you today go out for a walk, have a look at beautiful new green leaves of trees and bushes or flowers, which are starting to pop out. Yeah, I know there's a lot of shit and we tend to see only the shit, but I would encourage you to also see the beauty.
Like the picture you showed, I think that's the most, because it's interesting what you said. I remember at one stage the 5G was freaking me out. I was like going around looking, and I could see it in the churches, hidden in the churches, in the shopping malls and everything. And then it was a case of, all right, I'm looking at all the negative. Let's start looking at the beauty. And then I started looking at nature again, and you see so much beauty. So you see what you want to, so make sure it's good to be aware, but don't concentrate on it, because I made that mistake at one stage. Start looking at the beauty that's in the world. So, as always, Arnold, thank you very much. For the listeners, thanks for staying tuned. You'll find everything about Arnold on braingym.fitness. You'll find everything about me on roycolin.com, or just scan the QR code. You'll find all the different podcasts and the stuff that I mentioned, the Awakening and the Speaking podcast, and also the crypto. And be sure to give a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and subscribe. As I mentioned earlier on the YouTube, we've got now the playlist, so you can just find all our episodes. Until next week, take care.